Today I'm coming to you from a different corner, the loft at Mount Olive Lutheran Church, where this instrument resides, and where normally singers of the choir surround this console, all of us working together to help the entire room vibrate with an energetic expression of song. It's very sad to see the room empty and silent during this time, although without the distraction of inside lights, I can notice the windows very colorfully telling their story with the vibrant light of the outside coming to the inside, as if to minister to these silent and lonely walls. It's now Holy Week. We have had Passion or Palm Sunday, where we had the triumphant entry into Jerusalem and then went quickly to the first telling of the entire Passion narrative. The Passion narrative is a description of the events leading up to the arrest, crucifixion, and death of Jesus. This is the focus for this week until Saturday and Sunday, when we celebrate where this is all headed, and that is the resurrection of Jesus. And that is the promise we live in. As Easter people, we live in the promise of the resurrection and needn't fear death anymore. Today's hymn, O Sacred Head, Now Wounded, is also known as the Passion Chorale. It's one of our more powerful and deep hymns, and with good right. The church has been singing this hymn for 800 to 900 years, and it's been paired with this particular tune that we still sing today, or a version of it, for the last 340 of those years, which is close to half of its time. Both text and tune of this hymn have had quite a journey in and of themselves. The text is likely connected to a series of texts originally written to venerate the various portions of Jesus' body, 7 of them to be precise, 1 for each day of the week. It began with the feet, O sacred feet, O sacred knees, O sacred hands, O sacred side, O sacred heart, O sacred breast, and O sacred face, or O sacred head. The precise origins of this text are not certain. It may have begun with Bernard of Clairvaux in the 11th and 12th century, or it may have been Arnulf Louvain of the 13th century. We do know that Paul Gerhardt translated them into German in the 17th century. Remember, Paul Gerhardt was another person who lived through a horrible stretch of time called the 30 Years' War and Plague. That it has stayed with us a long time, and with good reason. It's deep. Time tends to sift out that which we don't really need and hang on to that which we do find helpful. The tune, we know, was likely originally a secular love song written to someone named Maria by Hans Leo Hassler, and the opening phrase went like this: "My heart is all excited, a sweet young maid is near." Accidental or perhaps intentional that a love song was very quickly paired with this text, O Sacred Head Now Wounded. The original form of this tune, like a lot of chorales, was much more rhythmic and full of the Renaissance vitality. Of course, in Bach's era, in the era of Pietism, all those rhythms were ironed out but made up for in the harmonies. Both versions appear in hymnals, although the majority of denominations tend to know the all quarter note version. In the ELW, the Lutheran hymnal, we have both versions side by side, so churches can move from one to the other from stanza to stanza, which we do at Mount Olive on occasion. Bach harmonized this melody more than once, as he used it in many of his major works. The version we have in our hymnal that we sing today is from the St. Matthew Passion. There are many ways one can sing this hymn. Sometimes here we sing it all with unaccompanied, with no organ, as in Good Friday evening. And we'll begin with the Bach setting and then move to the rhythmic setting and then back to the Bach setting to provide the variety that can help bring out the hymn in more depth. In this recording, we use several different ways. There is an introduction, for example, played by the organ, which is an improvisation and makes use of what we call the sighing motif from the Baroque era. It's like this. It was a figure in Baroque times used specifically to evoke the emotion of grief. For stanza 1, the entire assembly sings the Bach setting from the St. Matthew Passion, unaccompanied. It's a little unusual for an entire assembly to sing something like that, as it might be interpreted as more choral. But I find that when a large assembly sings the settings of J.S. Bach, there's an otherworldliness to them, a sense of timelessness to them, and a sense of very unique energy to it and depth. For stanza 2, the text is interpreted through an improvisation on the organ and depicts the painfully descriptive text of that stanza, words like pale, anguish, sore abuse, deadly pain, as a picture is drawn of Jesus on the cross. This improvisation is inspired by my mentor and predecessor right here at this console, Paul Mons. There is a pulsing, almost mocking figures, which brought to my mind how the soldiers made fun of Jesus and cast lots for his clothes, which isn't necessarily a part of this stanza, but is part of the entire picture. But it's a mocking figure which grows and grows to a great cry of pain. Begins like this. Stanza 3 is an organ setting by Johannes Brahms. It is sung by the choir as a love song with the text, "What language shall I borrow to thank you, dearest friend?" In Brahms' lovely setting, very peacefully arpeggiating accompaniment, you can hear a pulse of a heartbeat in the lowest voice that goes like this. And if you listen carefully, as the choir sings the words, "And should I fainting be," listen for the organ as it imitates fainting. As it falls chromatically, kind of crashes and dies, and then comes back to life. The fourth stanza, we're back to the Bach setting with the congregation unaccompanied. Now this stanza appears in our hymnal and not in others, but it's one that always jumps off the page to me because it has this line in it, "Lord, be my consolation, shield me when I must die, remind me of thy passion when my last hour draws nigh." It's like, what can we learn from this horrible picture of Jesus on the cross? Is that ending part. We don't have to fear, because look what happened to Jesus. He rose from the dead. It concludes that stanza with the line, "Die safely in thy love." This is a line we should memorize and internalize, for we really don't know when we're going to need it. But I hope when that time, I will have it as a tool to help me remember that we are always, in every situation, surrounded by the love of Christ.